I think are all critical sectors for Africa's industrialization. I think what was maybe particularly exciting for me to hear, and I think would be so for the BSOs online, is the plan to establish a private sector-led engagement platform for structured and optimal engagement with the Secretariat. And I think today's BSO engagement hopefully can provide a helpful step towards establishing this platform. And of course, BSOs have a critical role to play in aggregating the priorities and needs of the private sector. So let's now open the floor for a first round of questions and comments for the Secretariat. You heard from Cynthia, we're here to hear from you. So now's your time to raise questions and comments to help inform the Afcfta Secretariat's private sector engagement plan. You can type your questions in the Q&A chat box or raise your hand and you will be given the floor to speak, to deliver your question. So when I look at the Q&A chat box now, I already see a few questions. There's a lot of interest around the Afcfta trading companies. So Augustine, maybe I can ask you, there's a question to elaborate a bit more on the Afcfta trading companies, particularly what is the name of the first Afcfta trading company that started in Ghana? Have any other countries expressed interest in setting up trading companies? And is there a concept note? So maybe are there some guidelines in place that could support the establishment of these trading companies? Augustine?
Yes, okay. I'm here, Lily. Thank you. So first, the concept of this Afcfta trading companies started with a GTI, but the Secretariat's mandate to start looking into it and to develop a concept note and a model came from the heads of states in November last year in Niamey. And the directive was for the Secretariat to guide state parties in the setting up of trade aggregating companies. And we're to do that by helping them to explore the possible legal frameworks. So what structure, what form should a company take? And the reason for that is that you don't just want to have a company, but you also want to have a company that is attractive to the market and financiers. As Cynthia said, one of the challenges that we have with SMEs and smallholders is that they are not properly organized as legal entities, and therefore some of these financial institutions, especially commercial banks, are not willing to deal with them. So these are things that we are exploring in terms of developing a concept note on how an Afcfta trading company should look like. But the key term over there is that they have to be trade aggregating. That's key. So it's not your traditional export trading company, but we need trade aggregators. And that is key because the target is SMEs and smallholder trade. Now, in terms of whether we already have companies, as I said, there is one company in Ghana, it's called the West African Trading Company. We have asked them to share with us their model and their concept note on it. They are yet to do that. But from our preliminary, privately owned Ghanaian business. And it's a subsidiary of one of the biggest logistics companies within the West African sub-region. Purely privately owned in Afcfta products. Now, at the meeting in Botswana, I think we also became aware of a company in Namibia which may be interested. In fact, they said they will be interested in retweaking their structure or their business objective to become a trading company. So this is already an existing company that is looking to restructure itself to be a trading company. In terms of a concept note by the Afcfta Secretariat, this is something that we're still working on. And it will be part of the conversations that we'll be having with private sector as we embark on our GTI missions and other private sector engagements in the course of the year. But of course, if any entity or anybody is interested in exploring setting up Afcfta trading companies, we welcome inquiries and conversations.
Thank you, Augustine. I think that's provided a lot of clarity. So do reach out to the Afcfta Secretariat on this matter, and a concept note with guidelines will be available soon. So a couple of other questions coming in. One from Emmanuel: what special arrangements and initiatives does the Afcfta have in place to promote trading, especially e-commerce among startups, youth and women-led businesses? And then another one from Robin, a youth SME owner. First question: how can one register to be a member of the Guided Trade Initiative? And the second question: how can youth-led SMEs duly register to serve as a trade aggregator? So maybe Augustine.
Yes, I'll take this one. So first, on the GTI, there is no formal process to say this is how you register to become part of the GTI, because the GTI is still a state-led initiative because we're dealing with state parties. But one of the things that we did under the pilot phase was to get state parties to set up national coordinating offices. So most of the inquiries that we received have come from even state parties that are not part of the initial phase. And what we've done will be to connect them to the relevant authorities within their countries, and also to answer specific questions that they may have in terms of market access, products, rules of origin questions, and sometimes even asking us to connect them to some of the companies that participated in the pilot phase. But if your country already has a national subcommittee, will coordinate the process and get you talking with them. In terms of whether SME register as a trade aggregator, yes, SME, you can register as a trade aggregator. It will depend on your national law. So if the country you're incorporating in allows you to set up as a legal entity, I think that's fine. The most important thing is that you are a recognized legal entity and you're willing to provide trade aggregation services. Of course, it's not exclusive. We're not saying you should do only trade aggregation. You can do other things, but trade aggregation is at the heart of what we're trying to do with trading companies. So yes, SMEs, you can take part. It's not reserved for only big companies. Remember that the target is SMEs and smallholder farmers. In some cases, people are exploring the possibility of farmers coming together as cooperatives, forming cooperatives, and then transforming the cooperatives into trading companies, right? Or the cooperatives acquiring shares in a trading company. So you're not just a beneficiary of the services, you're also a part owner of the trading company. Now, as to whether your country recognizes cooperatives, it will be a matter of your national laws.
Thank you. So one more question here. How does the Secretariat plan to involve the BSOs and trade support institutions on the private sector platform? And this is from Christine from Caproba. Cynthia?
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for the question. So how do we plan? As I said in my presentation, first of all, we need to have a platform within the Secretariat. You can understand that, you know, in the implementation phase or the negotiation phase of the agreement, the participation of the private sector was not fully reflected. So now that we are going into the implementation phase, it's important that we have a structured platform through which we can engage the private sector. And yet, when I say private sector, you know, before even I talk about the BSO, the private sector is huge. We have the large corporations, we have the SMEs, we have the youth, we have the women, etc. So we need to come up with quite an innovative way. And this is where I said in the beginning of my presentation that we would like to hear even from the BSOs how they would like to see us be engaged. It's not really from the secretariat. It's not. I don't think it's really the role of the secretariat to actually dictate a way to engage the BSOs. But we would like to see through this engagement also leveraging on the study that we are doing, the private sector profiling mapping that we are doing together today, to understand what are the SMEs, what are the competitiveness, what are the characteristics on the continent, but also in terms of BSOs, who are they, how are they structured, how representative are they? It's important for us to have this data. And that's where we would like the BSOs to fill up the survey that we are going to present later, so that we get this information and we see exactly how we will work with the BSOs to support the implementation of the AFCFTA. For sure, we need to come up with a structure, but we do not want it to be a directed structure. My role is really here is to hear from everybody, but then you will see that there are lots of associations on the continent, but how organized are they? We have to get to that point to say, okay, even if we take regionally, we look at the regions, for instance, what will be the entry points? I know today we have some big the business councils which are there. We have the African Business Council also, which is there, which is supposed to be the umbrella organization for the private sector on the continent. But then it's important that everybody collaboratively come together and find a way. So this study that we are going to do, we hope to have the report ready by the business forum. The BSOs will be convened at the business forum. We will continue the engagement and hopefully come with a structure that makes sense for the BSOs and also from the Secretariat's perspective. So this is what I can say at this particular moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. So I think we'll take some questions. I note that 6 people have their hands raised. We're going to stick at the 6 that we originally had. I want us to have 5, maximum 10 minutes left of this Q&A so that we can move swiftly to the next session. So we'll take questions from Dimakatso, Emmanuel, Amanu, Teniola, Jackie, and Dauda. So Dimakatso, you can go first. Please keep your question very brief, 1 or 2 sentences max.
Thank you very much, Lily. My name is Dimakatso Malwela. I'm from OWIT SA Organization for Women in International Trade, the South Africa chapter. What I'd like to find out in terms of the women, is AFCFTA maybe intending to also host side events during their forums, whereby that side event will be focusing only on women? That is my question. Thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah, maybe I will take it, Lily. Yes, during the business forum in April, we intend to host, to have side events on women and youth. And also, this is something that we are actually discussing with our partners, ITC. So there will be specific sessions on women and youth. Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel?
Hi, okay, quick one. Thank you very much. My name is Emmanuel Ansamprofi from Mate Africa, which is an e-commerce based platform and trading organization based in Abuja and Ghana. My question here is this: for number one, in regards to Benin, I saw that Benin has not ratified yet. So how will this affect the Lagos-Abidjan trade corridor? That is one. Number two, my question is, are there any special events that are geared towards youth SMEs and women-led businesses in the form of fair conferences or things like that, to maybe bring together most of these youth affairs, these youth businesses or these SMEs in a fair of a bit of an exchange program to learn from each other and to also trade more with regards to Afcfta and take advantages of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe Muhannad, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think on this, look, they are a signatory, but perhaps ratification is a bit slow. Certainly, it is a challenge. One benefit of doing a trade corridor approach is it sort of promotes for that ratification of those that have not yet done it. I think that case of the member state mentioned is quite specific. Particularly in June of last year, they put around CFR 9 million on Nigerian-bound transit cargoes, which indeed was a challenge, but we are working towards alleviating that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Akadiri?
Merci beaucoup, Lily. Et bonjour à tous. Mon nom c'est Akadiri Abino. Je suis le directeur de la PWASI, la Fédération des chambres de commerce d'Afrique de l'Ouest. Je dirige aussi Africa Business Council. Donc, c'est pour nous un grand qui pourrait permettre de mieux nous approprier de ce qui existe. Je pense qu'il serait souhaitable qu'on puisse revenir aux types fondamentaux parce que lorsqu'on faisait la formulation de CFTA, les associations étaient bien engagées pour apporter d'autres positions sur tout ce qui a été fait juste là. Je pense que ces derniers temps, l'engagement commence pas à diminuer. Là, il serait continental pour apporter la position et les perspectives du secteur privé. Et aujourd'hui, l'impression, c'est que le CFTA est dirigé uniquement par les ministres en charge du commerce et les key drivers, comme Siita l'a dit. Siita que je remercie au passage parce que elle a parlé de comment engager avec les BSO. C'est normal. Et comment engager avec les BSO? Je pense que l'idéal serait d'avoir une réunion restreinte avec les BSO pour poser réellement cette question d'engagement. Comment on peut accompagner le secrétariat dans la mise en œuvre de ces activités? Alors, mon dernier point de contribution, c'est en ce qui concerne les secteurs clés qui ont été identifiés comme secteurs et porteurs d'investissement. Je pense qu'au niveau des REC, au niveau des pays ou bien des régions, il y a eu des modèles qui ont réussi. Et il serait bon qu'on puisse partager avec les autres BSO, mais les autres REC, ou bien même avec le secrétariat, ces modèles qui puissent permettre d'associer le secteur privé dans la création ou bien dans la création des entreprises qui vont mettre en œuvre ces différents secteurs. Les pères fondateurs de la FEWASI, ce qu'on appelle de l'Ouest, ont dit, si on veut réussir l'intégration régionale, c'est lorsque tous les citoyens se retrouvent autour d'un idéal ou autour d'un projet où ils s'associent. C'est cela qu'on peut réussir l'intégration régionale. Alors, avoir Afcfta comme partenaire technique et financier.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Akadiri.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. If you could finish in one sentence, please.
No, is to reiterate my appreciation for convening this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So Cynthia, I think that question was for you. How can BSOs engage in the implementation of Afcfta activities and the sharing of REC best practices on value chains in the priority sectors?
Yes, Lily, thank you. No, I really think there were more contributions than questions. I think what he said is that it's important that we engage the BSOs to see how we can, as I was saying before, engage them properly, but we need to hear from the BSOs. And as he said, it's important that we also learn from best practices. Indeed, the Afcfta has to, leverage on the existing. We don't need to start from scratch. Although the Afcfta is a new thing, and so we are trying to put together an engagement strategy that is in a way new, because the Afcfta is new. It's the first time that we are, talking about integration at the continental level. So how do we structure ourselves? We have to do it together. But again, I would like to thank our colleague for his suggestions. And definitely we will be able to, we will have to also, learn from the best practices at REX and how, we managed to integrate SMEs at REX level into the development of value chains, etc. So we are really open, and we hope that this conversation will continue, as I said, afterwards, even leading towards the business, ahead of the business forum coming up in April. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. So you heard the Afcfta Secretariat are waiting to hear from you. So you have the contacts of the experts online today. So please do reach out. So 3 more questions. I ask you, please keep your question to 30 seconds, and we'll also keep the responses tight and tidy. Okay, Teniola.
Yeah, hi, thank you. So my question is about IPAs. I'm sorry, I've been in and out of the meeting. I don't know if it was mentioned, because you have investments promotion agencies that to some extent are supposed to be focal points in their different countries for the private sector and for really mobilizing investments under the Afcfta. So I'm wondering if there's any plan to engage them in any sort of coordinated way. My name is Teniola. I work in the investment and trade space. And then the last thing I was going to ask is about compliance, so trade compliance. Is there some work, also some interest in working with people that can help firms be more compliant with the Afcfta and just help them meet the different regulations and requirements under the agreement? Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take the final 2 questions, and then we'll hear from the Afcfta Secretariat. So Jackie. Jackie, are you
Sorry,
there?
I didn't unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jackie Best. I am representing Bleisure Africa Forum, Bleisure as in business and leisure. We have invited, it's more of a comment and then a quick question afterwards. We have sent an invitation to His Excellency Secretary General of the Afcfta regarding our Bleisure Trade and Investment Summit in Mauritius, and we thank him for agreeing to possibly to speak. My first question is we want to find out how we can work with Afcfta in our own events and how we can possibly partner with Afcfta in their own platforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And then finally, Dauda. Are you there? Are you there? Okay. So then one final, Sylvia. Okay, yes, we can hear you.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis Bamba Daouda. Je suis le secrétaire général exécutif de REFATRA, le réseau de facilitation de transport et de commerce des produits agro-silvopastoraux en Afrique de l'Ouest. Alors, je suis aussi le secrétaire général exécutif de l'Union des conducteurs routiers de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, de la Mauritanie et du Maroc. Alors, ce forum nous intéresse à plus d'un titre. Alors, parce que dans notre réseau, le réseau de facilitation du transport des produits vivriers, alors qui est déjà détenu à presque 80% des femmes, alors jusqu'à aujourd'hui, nous sommes composés alors, des femmes qui vont prendre les produits à bord champ et puis on les commercialise à bord champ. Alors, ça suscite beaucoup de pertes. Alors, un exemple, quand on veut transporter le manioc d'ici le Burkina, ou bien la tomate du Burkina au Ghana, déjà en cours de route avec les barrières non tarifaires, déjà on perd presque 20% de ces produits. C'est-à-dire que c'est 80 à 60% qui arrivent à la consommation. Donc, toujours est-il que...
Sorry, could you please just keep your question focused? What is the question that you have for the experts?
Alors, ma question, est-ce que la GLECA peut aider alors ces femmes à pouvoir transformer ces produits-là bon champ avant la commercialisation, à les organiser en entreprise pour qu'ils puissent transformer ces, comme on appelle, ces produits avant la commercialisation. Alors, ma deuxième question, c'est l'initiative de facilitation du transport Abidjan-Lagos. Alors, qui nous intéresse à plus d'un titre. Alors, nous souhaiterons être impliqués, nous, UCRAO et puis REFATRA, dans cette initiative. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that was the last question. I did say we'd take 6. So the remaining participants, you will have an opportunity in the next round. So we had a question on investment promotion agencies, maybe, and the Trade and Investment Summit, women processing, and then trade compliance as well.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, the investment promotion agencies are going to be also very important key stakeholders. You probably know that we have now adopted the investment protocol, which even provides for the establishment of a continental, I think, investment promotion agency. For trade and promotion. So that means that we will have to work closely with the investment promotion agencies. And even recently in Ghana here, there was a first meeting under the auspices of I believe it's the GIPC here. There was an event that actually brought together the investment promotion agencies to which the Afcfta took part, and we are also looking at the business forum. It's probably going to be an activity sponsored by the investment promotion agency from the Cape Town, I think, province, but it's going to be a specific session bringing together all the investment promotion agencies. So for the lady who asked the question, please just be on the lookout for the communication. There will be definitely invitations that will be sent out to African investment promotion agencies to participate in this. I will say first, roundtable. It will be roundtable discussions to see how we can also they can also support the Afcfta implementation. With regards to I believe the SME trades, I think it's capacity building on trade compliance under the Afcfta. Yes, we have lots of initiatives. I mean, I think even when we look at the Afreximbank ITC Afcfta program on how to export under the Afcfta, it looks at this type of compliance. We have, we will, I believe, also work on a more capacity building for SMEs on sharing information as to on the NTBs, all the regulatory aspects basically that needs to be followed when trading under the Afcfta. Even during the business forum, we have some master classes that are also planned, where we want all the SMEs to live with a good package and good understanding of trade under the Afcfta. Compliance part is also is going to be also at the rendezvous, if I can say so. So these master classes will be good opportunities to take part in the business forum. Then the question from our colleague, Mr. Dauda, trade facilitation. I will really say that email address in the link so that you can reach out to me and then we can have these bilateral discussions. But yes, trade facilitation part of the database so that when they have sensitization, and they just had one, I believe, last 2 weeks ago in Togo, when they have sensitization awareness engagement, you can also be contacted and participate. So please, let's do this. And I know you have asked questions about the issues of post-harvest loss that women suffers when trading across borders and from countries to countries. And you've asked whether the Afcfta can help establish them into companies. This is really not our role, but let's just take this on bilateral, and then we'll see how we can work together. Thank you. And also there was a question with regards to, I think it was Pleasure Africa Forum. Yes, if you've sent the invitation will be considered for His Excellency to take part. It will be considered and a response will be also sent to you. Thank you very much. Thanks. I think
yes, you certainly have. No, thank you, Cynthia. So I'm conscious of time. We are quite a bit behind schedule, but I think, you know, the main purpose of this engagement was to have this interactive dialogue. So I'm glad that we've allocated some additional time for questions. For those who didn't have the opportunity to raise your question or have your question answered, please do post in the Q&A chat box, and we will take notes and share the questions with the Secretariat following this meeting. A lot of you have also been asking whether the presentations will be shared. We understand it's a lot of information to digest. We will be sharing all of the presentations following this meeting, along with the contacts of the experts who have presented, so that you can reach out directly. So we'll now move to the second segment of presentations, and this will be delivered by the institutions and ecosystem team at the International Trade Center. So the presentations will focus on sharing some preliminary results from the joint ITC Afcfta Secretariat private sector mapping exercise that Cynthia has already briefly spoken to. This exercise was carried out last year, and it provided an analysis of the characteristics and competitiveness of firms and BSOs across Africa. And a very critical complementary element to this mapping exercise is the BSO mapping survey that you have already been invited to fill in. So thank you to those who have already responded to the survey. And we really do encourage you to do so if you haven't, so that your voice is heard and reflected in the implementation of the Afcfta's private sector engagement plan. My colleagues will also be highlighting some best practices and key success factors for BSOs in the context of the Afcfta, and we hope that this will really enable you to reflect and charter a way forward for how your BSO may wish to adapt and tailor its service offering to a new world with the Afcfta in full play. So let me hand over to my colleagues. Firstly, Anne Chapaz, who is the Chief of the Institutions and Ecosystem section at ITC, and her team members, Nuria and Mark, who will also be contributing to the presentation. Over to you, Anne, Nuria, and Mark.
Thank you very much. I hope the sound is okay. I don't have access to video, but that's fine because I think Nuria is going to put up some slides, so you won't need to see my face anyway. It's a great pleasure to be here, and I thank so many of you for joining. What we're going to talk about today is really this work we've been doing with regional and continental business support organizations. So they're the ones who I think will find this of particular interest. But of course, many of the kind of theoretical discussion we're also going to share with you will be of interest for business support organizations at all levels. So you're all very welcome. So you've heard from my colleague Lily about the International Trade Centre. Just to make sure you understand why it is we're so involved in this discussion. You know, we're a multinational organization with a joint mandate with the World Trade Organization and the United Nations. So we believe we have an important contribution to inclusion, sustainability, and to prosperity. We do that because we help make small businesses more globally competitive. But it's not just about working with the small businesses. There are 4 core service areas that we engage with. And one of those is about understanding the really important role of business support organizations like those that are here today. These organizations have this important multiplier role to make sure that the work we do is amplified, multiplied, and that they provide the advocacy that's so important. We're going to talk a bit more about that intervention in a minute. So what we want to cover in the next half hour to 40 minutes or so is to present the objectives, the results, and the key findings of this work we've been doing about regional and continental BSOs. The first phase is completed, and you're going to hear about the findings from Mark. The second phase is halfway through. We've done some interesting work on the attributes of good regional and continental business support organizations, but there's an important next step, and that's why the survey is so important to make sure that we have this information to share with you all. So just to remind you a little bit about this context, so we're all on the same page. You've heard a lot about it already this morning. This is about making sure that the potential of the Afcfta agreement is maximized, bringing benefits to MSMEs to expand and grow. So if we look at that context, we know that there are a number of things that the agreement seeks to do to improve the performance of small businesses who, as you heard, make up 90% of firms worldwide and have a particular ability to create jobs, including for women and youth. Now, regional and continental BSOs have a critical role as the environment that allows these benefits from the Afcfta to be translated and cascaded to small businesses. Why is that? It's because there are some interventions that good business support organizations can deliver. It's about good information to overcome the information asymmetry that holds MSMEs back. It's about coordinating groups of businesses so that they can gain scale and improve their market access. It's about finding those new paths to market by understanding and setting up new networks and new sources of information into new markets. It's about taking seriously the need for inclusion and sustainability when they're allocating resource, prioritizing firms, and managing projects. It's about bridging the gap between the private and the public sector, which we know is going to be so critically important in the years to come. It's about providing the services that build the capacity of SMEs, and it's about offering those MSMEs the credibility because of the association they have with your organizations. So to deliver on those interventions, deliver on that value creation by business support organizations, we do know that they need to be visible, and they also need to be strong, and they need to have some core attributes that we're going to share with you this morning. But this visibility is important, which is why this work we've been doing over the last 6 months, we think will make a difference. So these BSO mapping that we've done, phase 1, phase 2, it was designed to provide the Afcfta Secretariat with an overview of the profile of the regional business support organizations operating within Africa, of their performance, and of their level of connectedness. So we're going to talk to you about the results of phase 1, the findings, and then we're going to introduce some of the factors of success in phase 2, and in particular this importance of connectedness. So to cover that and to make sure that you have a link to this really critical survey, I'm very pleased to hand over to Mark, who's been carrying out a lot of this work, and we're very proud to have him as part of our team. So Mark, over to you to share the findings of phase 1.
Thank you, Anne. Good morning, everyone. And my name is Mark Dabuka. It has been a pleasure for me working on this mapping. And before moving into the first phase, the result of the first phase of the mapping, it's important for me to recall here that the contributions of all BSOs here, and even those that are not here, is actually crucial. Why? Because the result that we are going to present you today are mostly based on online sources, but this was not the initial idea we had. The initial idea we had was to make sure that this mapping reflects the reality of the ecosystem, the reality of African BSOs. Unfortunately, we have not been able to get a lot of responses from BSOs. Actually, the response rate to our survey or interview request was low. Just to give an idea, for the first phase, we had 5 organizations responding to us, but I'll give more details about that. It's also actually important to mention that no sensitive information will be required from you, actually. And it's actually also an advantage for BSOs to fill this survey or to contribute to this mapping, because the data or the result of the mapping will be shared and be used by partners, potential donors, project managers, and secretariats of various organizations. So we'll be really grateful if you could actually take some of your time to contribute to this survey. You can already see a QR code on your screens. I think, Nuria, you may be able to paste the QR code in the chat box so that you maybe BSOs will be able to have access to the survey, because this QR code gives you straight access to the survey, actually. And we have been expecting, and we are still expecting your contribution. And it's also an occasion for me to thank all the organizations that have already contributed. It has been a pleasure receiving your responses. Moving into the first phase of the mapping, the focus for us was, first of all, of course, to identify the different BSOs, business organizations operating in Africa on the regional level, we mean continental level, but also BSOs operating in the context of the regional economic, the different regional economic or SADC and the other organization that have been mentioned earlier. So after identifying them, it was about finding so the beneficiaries, the services they provide, and also their contact details. General idea already of the results. The first thing to mention is that regional organizations vary in their maturity, activity. First of all, how do we come up with the results? We have done a lot of research online, finding documents, and consulting directories, first of all, to identify the BSOs that operate in Africa. And by doing that, we have been able to identify initially 71 organizations. But of course, in the recent days, we are also identifying new organizations, so these numbers would actually be updated. So after identifying all these organizations by name, of course, or in name, we have moved deeper to find their mandate. What do they do? The mandates, and then identifying the mandates, we also try to identify the beneficiaries, the members or membership composition, the services they offer, and their contact details. And finally, we have not just stopped there. We try to find exactly or approximately from this organization, for how many of them can we find an element showing that they are active. And for this, we have mostly worked on information found on websites of different BSOs that are active, informations on from their social medias, and also informations from other BSOs showing that they have collaborated with these BSOs. For example, if you have a BSOs B, to find if, for example, that BSO B is active, if we find an information on the websites of BSO A showing that BSO B has collaborated with BSO A recently, it shows us that BSO B is also active, actually. And through this process, we have been able to identify 67 BSOs, at least with a clear mandate. 51 of these 71 BSOs had a mandate, beneficiaries, so members, services, and contact details. And out of this number, we have been able to find 41 of them with evidence of activity. Going to the next slide, we'll talk about the first finding, the first key finding of this mapping. It's about the focus of the BSOs. So many regional and continental BSOs take a sector or value chain as focus, but some are also more broadly based. What does it mean clearly? For example, we have in Africa BSOs that focus or that work on different sectors, and these are mostly business councils, chambers of commerce, and employers organizations, or entrepreneurs association also. Or some of them focus on a particular sector. For example, we have the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers. We have pharmaceutical manufacturers. Also, we have Farmers Association, as just as an example. And finally, we have BSOs that focus on a particular value chain. It could be tea, it could be cotton, it could be cashew, seeds, oil, or other products. The second key, still in this, still in the focus, this is actually a general map that we have tried to build based on all the BSOs we found. So considering the sectors in which they operate, it could be cross-cutting sectors, particular set of value chain, we try to identify on the continental level and regional level, what types or categories, if I may use this word, of BSOs do we have? For example, are they business councils? Are they chambers of commerce? Are they farmers or producers associations? Are they manufacturers? Are they traders? Are they focusing on tea, grain, communication, general medicine, cashew, and all these specificity? But the key things to keep in mind here is that actually this map reflects also the organization of the private sector in the different countries. Just to give an example, if we have FEWASITI, for example, it is because we have in the different countries of West Africa, we have national chambers of commerce, actually. So if we also have Pan-African chambers of commerce, is also, of course, because we have chambers of commerce in different countries. If we have farmers associations, it's because we have in the different countries, and even at the lower level, we have farmers associations. So this is just to give you an idea of how to understand this map. But another thing is also that we may not find all these categories of organization in odd regions. For example, you may not find a tea trade organization in odd region. You may not find manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturers association in other region, actually. So that is something to mention. The second, we can move to the next slide. Second finding of this mapping is the mandates of regional organizations are well aligned with the Afcfta objectives. So by mandate, we mostly mean what do these PSOs, what do they do concretely? just to explain how this graph, how we came up with these graphs is that after identifying the BSOs and the mandates, we try to identify the key mandates that we have across all the organizations. And we have the two key mandates that we have are promoting and defending the common interest and position of the members. For this particular mandate, most organizations actually work on it. Most organizations, it's mostly about making sure that the interest, opinion, the realities and challenges of the different business communities that they represent are well considered by policymakers, for example, or through policy making processes. We also have another mandate, which is promoting the harmonization of trade and business related policies and or a conducive business environment. So it is not just for BSOs about focusing on the challenges of the private sector, but also going deeper and contribute to regional integration by promoting the development of common policies and regulations, because these actually contribute to make sure that, for example, in a particular region or on the international market, businesses are able to operate easily across countries. Another mandate is to help members improve their performance, and this is done mainly through the different services that BSOs offers, such as capacity building, access to information, support with access to funding, for example. And finally, we have promote a value chain. This is, of course, mostly for organizations focusing on a specific value chain. And they do this through the different events and advocacy they do to promote the value chain, but also to attract investors and making sure that businesses operating in the particular value chain are competitive. Yeah. Third finding, regional organization can reach the private sector and multiply effort in support of Afcfta. This is a key element, and this is actually one of the reasons why BSOs are important in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. And we'll come back on that in more details after. But talking about membership, we have noticed that regional BSOs represent apex bodies of national level organizations. And even most BSOs have as members national private sectors organizations, but also corporate companies. As an example, we could talk about as a BSO having as members corporate companies. We have, for example, the African Association of Automotive Manufacturers. Talking about national business or private sectors organizations, we have most organizations, for farmers associations, for example. We have chambers of commerce, have business councils and all. But it is also important to mention that some organizations, either as core member or associate member, considered regional or other regional business or private sector organization. Just to give an idea of this, for example, you have the African Association of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers, which has as members, core members, the Regional Association of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers, actually. After this, we move to the fourth finding of this mapping, which is about the services that these BSOs, that the different BSOs offer. We have regional organization provide services, of course, to help the private sector benefit from Afcfta. As Anne mentioned earlier, the agreement offers a large benefits, a large potential of benefits to the private sector. But it is also important to make sure that these private sector actors are enabled to take profit from the agreements. And here we have the key services that the BSOs offer. Maybe you may be wondering how we came up with these numbers concretely before I talk about the specific services. After identifying, it was the same process. After identifying the different services that all the BSOs offer, we have tried to identify the key services that come back. That's how we came up with all these types of services. And then for each service, we tried